hello to everyone. I don't know if you can see me. Okay, I'm Berta. I'm working at the alumni office in Adibay. And this is the second, as I told you, this is the second alumni cafe that we are just offering. And today we will be talking about career opportunities and a career experience on the environment. Our speaker is an IBE graduate from the Master in International Relations. She works in Colombia and she will introduce herself later on. And just to let you know and just to explain you that this initiative was it's an effort for all the IBE alumni to share professional paths and also clarify questions concerning job opportunities, even to find new opportunities in the world or wherever. And even it can be like a space to start networking among people who might be interested in the same career field. So here we are starting, and just to let you know that for all participants, your video and audio will be disconnected during the presentation of Mariona. The main reason to be for this is that we don't have permission to record your interventions, and after that we will give the floor to you after her presentation, and then you will be able to join the session and ask questions, and your image and your audio will be on. So let's start. So please, Mariona, thank you for joining us and for this opportunity to keep going.
Okay. Can you hear me properly, Berta? Because I don't see if the video, and the video is okay, because I don't see it very well, but you can see me.
Everything is okay, yeah, so okay. No problem.
Perfect.
Go on. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, so thank you very much for being here today. We are working from the Alumni Council to manage to have these coffee talks or these cafes. The idea is that everyone can explain its own experience and try to share ideas and to share experiences. So I'm going to make a little presentation, but feel free to ask as many questions as you want and to ask whatever you want to talk about, even if I didn't talk about it before. The idea is that we can feel relaxed. So I'm gonna share my presentation for today. Let's just wait a second. So you can tell me please if it's okay. You can see it properly. Well, I think it's okay. So here you can see a picture of one of my trips in Belize. I did it in 2017, and as you can see, I like nature. This photo was made from a boat. This was an island near the Blue Hole in Belize, and I took this picture from a little boat, and this was the only way to get to this island. So for me, it was perfect because there were turtles and sharks and so many things related to nature that I really love. But as you know, or some of you may know because you have worked in this field, not everything is nature in the environmental field, even if it seems a contradiction. I wanted first to introduce myself. As Alejandro, my colleague, said last week, maybe this is the most boring part, but this is to try to explain how did I get here and how did I manage to have a career in the environmental field. So I'm 44 years old. I'm older than many of the people that I studied with last year. I'm a Spanish industrial engineer from the Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya here in Barcelona. I graduated in 2001, and I was specialized, or I had a specialization in environment. I studied that because when I finished my studies at school, I had the opportunity to go to Toulouse in France to work there. and I towards to study there. And I thought I was going to do chemistry, but as they told me that there was this opportunity to study in France at that period, it was 1994, so a long time ago. And I was so happy to be able to study in another country that I decided that I didn't care. I was not going to study chemistry. I was going to study engineering and going to France. So I began my studies in France. And then I came back to Catalonia and I finished industrial engineer here in Catalonia. And as I like engineering, but not everything in engineering, mostly the part related to environment and especially water. Water was one of the things that interested me the most. And this is why I did this specialization in environment. And I began working at that time, it was 2001, and I wanted to work with water because this is the issue that has always interested me the most in the environmental field. And I only find a work in an engineering company designing irrigation systems, which was not exactly what I wanted. And I realized that I had to do some more specific studies regarding the environment in order to be able to get a better job. So I did a master's in environmental engineering and management at the UPC also in 2003. And then I got a job, a better job, more related to what I wanted. And I passed like 10 years working in different engineering Spanish companies, making projects in the water field, like wastewater treatment plants or water treatment plants. And then I changed a little bit and I began working with solid waste and also with energy, with renewable energy and things like that. But there was a crisis in 2009, as you know. Well, it was in 2008, but for us in the engineering field, it was very, very hard in 2008. 2009, sorry, and our company, or my company, my ancient company, decided that we had to try to work abroad. And this is the point where my life changed a little bit, because when I began work abroad, there was not many people wanting to work abroad because of the languages. I have always like learning and speaking new languages, so I was almost the only one who spoke languages and could travel to the north of Africa and places like that. So I began traveling there. And it was then that I realized how difficult it was to try to make business with other cultures that you don't know, in other languages, with other religions, with other ideas of how the world works, and that it was very difficult to understand how to do business if you didn't understand the political and social parts or aspects of a country. And I had my friend Alejandro, who did the presentation 2 weeks ago, who has a really completely different background for me, but we are good friends. And he said, Mariona, I'm studying this master's in international relations. I think you could like that. And I was a little bit like, I don't know, because I'm not that much in this field. I think it's more for people who has studied humanities, and I have studied a technological career, so I don't know. And he said, no, I think it's great for you, you should try. And then I took a look at the program and I said, okay, I'm gonna do that. And I began doing the master's that I had to stop because I was sent by my last company to Peru, and I lived there for 5 years, and then I came back, and last year I finished the master here in eBay. And some of the people who are here today know me because I was here in the master's last year. But I think this was a really important point in my life that changed everything and made me feel that you need to be a complete person. And if you want to work in the environmental field, it's okay. You can work there from a technical point of view, but it can also be something more complete that involves also social aspects, political aspects, etc. So for me, it was really, really interesting to do this matters, and this is also why I'm here today. And well, I spent 5 years in Peru, then I was last year here in Barcelona finishing the master's, and I did my thesis on the water infrastructures in Peru. My thesis was about why the water infrastructures in Peru, as an example of a Latin American country, didn't go on, why they were so delayed in that aspect. And I studied many of the possible causes. It was the best thesis in the world, but for me it was the best because the subject was so interesting for me. And then I had this job opportunity to go to Colombia to direct the environmental and social studies department in a company, in a Canadian company, one of the biggest ones in the world in the engineering and consultancy fields. And well, I decided to go there, and I'm now the director of this department that works in doing environmental impact studies, environmental studies, social studies, archaeological studies of big infrastructures that are being constructed in Colombia, like electric lines or renewable energy plants, or I don't know, new roads, etc. So I'm doing a very interesting job there. It's in Colombia, which is a developing country with many problems. It has had many problems in the past, but I think it's very interesting because they are one of the first ones in developing renewable energies in this moment, and this is so exciting to work in this field right now. So this is a little bit who I am from a LinkedIn point of view. You can take a look at my profile if you want, but who I really am. So what I wanted to tell you is, yes, I'm presenting this, or I'm making this presentation about how to make a career in the environmental field, but I'm not only that. I'm a person with many interests, and I think it's great if you have more interests than specific ones. And what I really like is getting to know different languages, people and cultures, traveling, and also the education field. So yes, I'm a lot in this environmental field, but I'm also very interested in many other aspects that involve a lot different countries and cultures. So this is what I wanted to explain a little bit about me in order that you can know me and you can maybe better understand my presentation. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit also on how to make a career in the environmental field from my point of view. My point of view is the point of view of someone done this career coming from, sorry, I had a little problem here. Okay. Excuse me. So I have this technological background, so I have a technological maybe point of view, but I'm trying to see all the picture and show you what I see, or which are the places where you could work in the environmental field. So I could have done that by specialties, like, okay, you can be an environmental lawyer, an environmental economist, an environmental engineer, an environmental biologist, an environmental, I don't know what, but I prefer to do that considering the private, public, and international sectors. So regarding private companies, as you can see here, I put a list of the most important ones in the engineering and consultancy field. I could have written the names of some Spanish companies, but I think if you want to work in your country, it's gonna be easy for you to find the companies that work in the environmental field. And sometimes it's more difficult to know which are the big ones in the world. And if I could give you an advice from my 20 years of career, I think it's better to begin with the big ones, not to go to a little one where you can learn a lot, but then it's going to take you a long time to get to the big one. If you want to be in the environmental field, but in a strong company where you can see many projects that others have done in other countries, etc., why don't go to the big ones, to the best ones from the beginning? So here are ones, I put some names of some of the big ones, like Aon, Worley Parsons, Jacobs, WSP, this is where I work, Arcadis, ERM, Golder, etc. You have all the list here, so you can check that if you were interested in working in a consultancy or engineering company in the environmental field. Then you have the public companies. The public companies are more local. So if you want to work from a public point of view, the environment in the place where you were born or where you are living right now, not with an international point of view, but with a local point of view, you could work in municipalities where they have their environmental teams, or you could go to the government, to your government of your country, or you could go to a water service companies, and these are really interesting places also to work if you are interested in one subject, for instance, water or wastewater or solid waste, etc. And then we have the international organizations. For me, this is the most interesting. If you have done a master's in international relations, I think you're going to take a look at that. There are many international organizations. I tried to summarize this a little bit in 3 types. This would be the NGOs. If you are interested in NGOs, check the list that I have written down there, and you will see that there are many related or only focused on environment, like WWF or Greenpeace. Then we have the United Nations and all its subsidiaries, like the United Nations Environmental Program, the FAO, etc. I also here write it down a link where you can see a list and programs that these organizations have. And then there are the multilaterals like the World Bank, the EBRD, the European Union, the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and bilateral agencies. And well, I only have written down 2 of them, but you can check in Google and you will find that all these multilateral organisms have like a special department or a special organization for environment. I think this is quite interesting, but again, it's not easy to work in one of these international organizations. I think the sooner you try to work there, the better, because it takes you a long time, then you get older, and it's more difficult because there are not so many vacancies and it's difficult to get one of them. But if you begin by doing an internship in one of these organizations, I don't know it because I haven't done it, but I think it's gonna be easier than if you try to do it later on. So I think these are the possibilities, and also maybe I should have said that in the private companies you could have also like lawyer companies where you can maybe be an environmental lawyer, things like that. So there are many opportunities. It's very difficult to summarize the environmental field because we say environment and we say so many things at the same time. There are so many careers that you can develop in the environmental field, but I think more or less it's you can resume it in these 3 aspects: private companies, public companies, international organizations. So I think it can also be interesting for you to do some readings and maybe try to find some courses about environment. There are some that are free. Regarding the readings, I strongly recommend to go to the website of sustainable development goals and study a little bit about that. Well, study and be interested a little bit in the sustainable development goals, because also in environment there are like 2 levels. I don't know how to explain it better, but there are like 2 levels. What I'm doing now, for instance, are environmental impact studies, are what I said, archaeological studies, are social studies, etc. And this is very like how to explain that, it's very like day-to-day work. If you want to work in environmental aspects, climate change, sustainable development, etc., in a higher level or at a higher level, you should try to read a lot and try to find jobs related more to sustainable development goals, the SDGs, climate change, greenhouse effect gases, things like that. But if it's okay for you to do like day-to-day environmental work, it's more what I said, environmental impact studies, etc. Then it's also very important to read a lot about the Paris Agreement, which was the one that was successful, and all the agreements that have been taken or not taken in all the COPs that have been taking place during the last 20 years, more or less, because this gives you an idea of on how the world is moving in the environmental field and which are the keywords, let's say, that you need to use and to understand when you want to work in the environmental field. And finally, I wanted to talk about the sustainable cities. This is something that is very important now because cities, as you know, are having much more power than before. And this idea of sustainable cities is growing. And there are many organizations like C40 or Eurocities or Metropolis that are working a lot in this idea of environmental sustainable cities. This is really important. And regarding courses, well, you can find many in many universities around the world, even at eBay. But I recommend that you take a look at the Moocs that many organizations have, like the Inter-American Development Bank, or I think UN also have some Moocs. I don't know, maybe there are other organizations that have, and they are usually very, very cheap courses. If you want to have like a badge or a certificate, you have to pay like $20 or something like that. But it can be useful and interesting. Usually in these courses, the level is very high, but it gives you a wide idea of what they are talking about, the words they use. For instance, if you take this course that I wrote down here, una mirada a la gestión de riesgos ambientales y sociales en proyectos del BID, you can learn which are the words that they use when they talk about environmental and social problems, and this can be very interesting for you, I think. And well, just I don't want to make it very long, but I wanted to ask, why should you make a career in the environmental field? Well, there are many reasons. Everyone has his reasons, but well, maybe because you feel passionate about the subject. I was passionate about the environment because, as I said, I was really interested in the water field, and I was interested not only in the technical aspects of water, but also in the problems that water can deliver because of its scarcity that can provoke wars, like in, I don't know, for instance, if we take the example of Israel and Palestine, many of the problems that they have are because of water and the scarcity of water in that region. And I thought this was a very interesting subject, and I was really interested in wastewater, which was for my family really surprising because, I mean, it's not the prettiest water that you have. You could be interested in potable water, but I was interested in wastewater. I thought it was really important because of the problems of diseases in the countries that don't treat water and things like that. So I was passionate about the subject, and I began working. And what I wanted to tell you about that, if you haven't worked yet in that field, is that there are many people passionate about the environment working in this field. However, you need to take always into account that you often have to find a compromise among between your feelings towards environment. As my first picture, I love the nature, I love the animals, I love being in a place where there's no one, etc. But then when you begin working in the environmental field, you must find a compromise, because if you were so environmentalist, you would never construct any infrastructure nowhere. So it is important to be passionate, that be also that when you work in the environmental field, it doesn't mean that you are saving dolphins all day long. Sometimes you have to do things that are not in theory good for the environment, and you are an environmental, for instance, or lawyer or whatever. No? Then another reason to be working in the environmental field is because you want to have an impact in global governance in this subject. I would also like to work in that someday. And I think if you feel like this, I recommend, as I said before, that since beginning, you try to be in international organizations where you can work and you can understand their vision, their global vision since the beginning of your career. And then, well, for many other reasons, any reason can be good for being in the environmental field, and any reason can be good for being in the environmental field and then changing, or the other way around. Maybe you were in a field that has nothing to do with environment, but you feel that you want to be working here, and it's never late to do that if you manage to have a little bit of knowledge of what I said, the vocabulary, the problems that we are facing, the main problems that are the focus right now in the environmental field. And then I think it's possible to have a career even if you have begun with something completely different. So this is my presentation in this field. I wanted to share a little bit my view on how to make a career in the environmental field and explain to you a little bit what have I done to get to this point where I am now, right now. And well, so thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mariona, for sharing with us all your professional experience in the field of the environment.